I am Thelma Coleman of Frizzleburg, Maryland. I am 99 years old and I live alone. I was born in Finksburg, Maryland, and I moved to the Hook Road near Westminster when I was 2 years old with my parents and my brother. My daddy had a farm, 78 acres, and we had horses and pigs and cows and sheep, and I used to milk we had 8 cows, and I would help milk those cows morning and evening before I went to school. I went to school at a little school near the farm, and there were only 6 in the class. And I went there for the 1st and 2nd grade, and then I went to Stone Market where there were 12 in the class. And that lasted through the 5th grade. And then I went to Westminster and went into the apartments on Green Street on the 4th floor. Wait, what do you call it? What in case of fire, a fire escape. And I used to get on that thing, and it went around and around and around, and you come flying out the end, and we used to be scared to death of that. Well, I went to school there till I got into the 5th grade, and then I went over to the elementary school on Center Street, and I stayed there until the 8th grade, and then I went to the Westminster High School where I graduated from, and that was in 1936. And I did everything. I had a garden, I worked in the garden, and I worked in the fields. When my daddy planted peas, we had to, and when he mowed hay, went to put that in the hay mow, and I helped with that. Sure, we had to do everything on that farm. There wasn't anything we didn't do, keep the hay and all. We'd try to cover each other up with the hay, and they'd put me on the wagon to place the hay around, you know. Then they'd try to cover me up. Half the time, they'd half fall off, you know, off the wagon, and then we had a horses and wagon. It wasn't a truck. It was the horses, and the horses would move, and the hay would shift, and off it would go. I guess sometimes it almost threw me off, but then I went, when we took the load into the barn, well, we had a pulley that pulled the hay off the wagon and took it in there, and I would be in the hay mow, and all this hay would come in there and drop down on me. It was really something unbelievable. Well, I used to milk those blooming cows in the evening and morning, and when it was hot, they'd switch their lousy tails and hit me across the face, and it'd make me so mad I'd get up and take my stool and hit them with it. Then I'd sit down, and then maybe they'd kick up my bucket of milk over, and I'd have to hit them for that. So as a kid, I thought I was something great because I just would take over the barn, you know, when they mistreated me. So anyway, then I used to ride the horses and watch the cattle in the field. We didn't have fences. We did not have any fence around the cattle. I had to keep them all in the center while they ate. And we used to plant potatoes, and I had to pick up potatoes and help my daddy, and my brother and I had to pick up potatoes maybe all day. And we worked hard, but we didn't know any different. We really didn't. I used to help with all that. And I used to ride the horse to watch the cows in the field. And we had a pony, and he used to run off, and my brother and I'd run all over the country to get the pony back. I mentioned that we had a number of cows and horses and pigs and all that, and we had 5 beautiful horses. And one was Coley, and one was Fancy, and one was Dandy, and one was Prince. And I used to ride Dandy. Okay, my daddy had a beautiful stallion. His name was Prince, and he used to use that for breeding. And we as kids were never allowed to be anywhere near when my daddy was in business. And but I remember as a child how my mother was so particular about us being around that business, so we weren't allowed to be able to. If there was a calf being born in the barn, we were not allowed to see that calf born. Oh no, Today they take children to see that. Thomas Bennett and Hunter, they were road, contractors. They put down the main roads, went to the Hunters for 4 years, and I started out from school, and he paid me $10 a week. $10 a week, 7 days and nights a week. $10, that's what I got. And I saved money on it. I saved enough money to buy the bedroom suite that I live in today. That wasn't my bedroom. I bought for $199 in Baltimore at a furniture store, brand new, 9 pieces. And I saved money from $10 a week for 4 years and paid for that. And they brought it out of Baltimore for me. And I'm sleeping on it today. I graduated in June and went to the Hunter home in July and was there 4 years and took care of his mother. After that, I went into the Hollands and I was cashier there. And from Hollands, I took care of Mrs. Holland and also Mrs. Beard. After nursing there, I went to the Carroll County Hospital, and I was there 15 years volunteering in the gift shop. And you didn't have money, went through a depression, terrible depression. Yeah, it was terrible. Bread was a nickel a loaf, and sugar was 20 cents for 5 pounds. And yeah, and boy, you watched every penny. Yeah. Christmas, we visited neighbors. They would come in, and my mother would have fruit cake and root beer, and maybe some candy. And the neighbors would come in and have that, and they'd visit, and then they'd leave, and then somebody else would come, and you gave them cake and root beer and all that. That was Christmas. When, as a kid, when my brother and I would come down Christmas morning, we would have 2 gifts. They were nice ones, but you didn't have 50 like kiddies do today. And we were so grateful for them. I'd have a great big baby doll, and and I still got it. It's right in there in my living room. This doll on my right was Pappy Coleman's, my father-in-law, and it's over 100 years old, with I guess 125, and he gave me that before he passed away. That was my father-in-law. This one was my doll that I got. Her name is Betty, and I got her when I was 5 years old. So she's 95 years old, almost 94. And so I have all my dolls, and I just love them. They're in my living room. I took care of my dolls all my life, kept them in my possession because I was so afraid something would happen to them. So I took care of them all my life. Everywhere I went, my dolls followed me. So.
Did your husband mind?
No, indeed. No, indeed. He was tickled to death that I was interested in his daddies. Oh, my mother was Effie Duvall Glover, and my daddy Clarence Russell Glover, and Herman was Clarence Herman. And we had a wonderful life there on the farm together. We all worked together. When I was a kid, my daddy and mother had bought a car, an old Overland. It was then there's none today. And on Saturday evenings, my daddy and mother would take my brother and I to Westminster. And you went in Westminster at 4 o'clock, and you parked across from the Catholic Church. And on Saturday night, there were so many people on the street, and so many were crowded around my mother and daddy's car, that I couldn't get in or I couldn't get down the main street, so I'd have to walk out into the main street to get around what I was doing, you know, running up and down the street like crazy. And it was an Overland, and my daddy and mother, we drove that to church, and it had old curtains on it. And sometimes there would be a storm, you know, and those curtains would flop, and my mother was scared to death. And they'd flop, and some of them, they'd come unbuckled, you know. And my brother and I sit in the back seat. We had a grand time. We thought that was funny, but she didn't think it was funny. She was in front with my daddy. I can see her now. And she was so afraid something was going to happen, that the storm would, you know, would do something to us. But then we got home, and she fixed dinner on Sunday, and we'd have a good chicken dinner. Maybe the preachers would come, and we had a good time. They really, the preachers loved them because they would give them a good big dinner on Sunday after church. And I remember my dear daddy, that clock that's right in there on the, I can see him this minute walking to that clock and winding that thing every Saturday night after we came from Westminster. I can see him doing that right this minute. So that was on a Saturday night. Then Sunday morning, of course, we went to church. And I was a pretty good girl. Sometimes I was right up bad. But I remember when we go on Sunday night, and I was just a little tiny tacker, I remember laying on my mother's lap in church. I remember that. Yes, sir. My mother was very religious. Every Sunday morning, rain or shine, my parents took my brother and I and my mother and daddy, and we four went to Smallwood Church for years until I came up here. We were at my home, and I got pregnant, and Linda was born in 1942, and I worked in Baltimore, and my mother kept her for me for a long time, mother and daddy, and they were crazy about her. My daddy would take that child with him shopping, and he was so crazy about her. He'd take her into different places, and he'd say, I want you to see my little granddaughter. Isn't she beautiful? And he'd tell everybody, had to took her in Westminster to show her off. He just thought there was nobody like Linda. And so then, of course, we were living down there, and then in, I don't, what year was we were coming up? I don't know, came up here. We came up here to open the store, and we had that 10 years, and Royer died, and I closed the store. I graduated in 1936. I met my husband, Carroll Coleman, and we were married, and we lived there on the farm for several years until we decided, we worked in Baltimore, both of us at the war plant, and then American Hammered Piston Ring. And then we decided that we wanted a business. So we found a place in Frizzleburg that had a store. And we opened it up and called it Coleman's Food Center. And that's where I live today. And we stayed there 10 years. My husband died, and I couldn't run it by myself. So we closed the store, and I had it made into an apartment where I'm living today. I was married. My brother and his wife, Millie, stood with us. We went to Deer Park Church, to the pastor's home, and we were married there. And after we were married, they took us into Westminster in the rumble seat of the car and up and down the street. And, of course, people were, knew it. And we had a lot of fun that evening. And then, I don't know whether it was the next morning, I think we left, and we went to Berryville, Virginia, and to Luray Caverns and different ones. We were going on our honeymoon about 3 whole days. I don't know why I know that I lived here. When Royer brought me from Maryland General Hospital with Vicky, he had coon dogs, and they brought all the coon dogs and tied them out front so that when I came home, that crazy Bob Warner and a bunch of those men got together, and they had signs all over the front. When I walked in, everybody was looking at the dogs. They weren't looking at me, and they doing that for Royer. Yeah, they loved him. This is my husband, A. Royer Coleman. He is named after his mother was a Royer, and that's how he got his name. And he was a wonderful boy to my family and to his family. He worked for Mr. Lease Warner and was much liked there. They had a lot of fun. And he worked in the store with me for a while, and then he decided that he could do something else while I kept the store. And I had help too. Wish you could have been here. We had sandwiches and sundaes, and we had the big meat case with every kind of meat in it. And we bought all kinds of vegetables, and the store was full of all kinds of fruits. Anything you can mention, we carried it for a long time, and we had a good business. We had wonderful customers. People came from everywhere, from Littlestown. Westminster would come up here and shop. And we were just delighted to have so many good friends. And my family had a nursing home, and we delivered groceries to them and other people who called and wanted an order, and we fixed orders and took them out. I took them out in the car, and we had one experience I had. Went down to my home, and I parked the car in the yard and took the groceries in, And when I came out, the car was down over the hill. I hadn't put the brakes on. It was down at the spring house, and it was right over the drain. And I had called a friend, and he came down and towed it back up. And I got blamed. I got teased an awful lot about that. Yeah, but we delivered groceries to people. When I came up here and went to the dairy, I was in the dairy, in the kitchen, in the lunchroom part. And finally they closed the lunchroom, and I went upstairs to the office. And I worked in the office at the dairy until the dairy closed, and I was given the books to collect all the people that didn't pay their bills. So I brought my books home, and I worked on that from the dairy, yeah. When I moved to Frizzleburg and had the store, I gained a lot of new friends, and we had a lot of parties. The whole gang would get together over in the yard next to me at night, and sometimes the parties got a little wild, but that's all right. There would be Grandma and Pappy Coleman would come, and the Warners that had the dairy, and all the people, John and Catherine, and a lot of people would come, and we'd party over here. We'd have refreshments and I don't know what kind of drinks. We won't go into that. But anyway, we got pretty loud. A couple times we got called down. So that was the Frizzleburg party. And then I worked at the dairy, as I said, and I worked in the restaurant, and then I worked in the office. And Mr. Needling was the boss, and he didn't like it because Pap Warner hired me. It was all men. I was the only woman in there. And Mr. Needling did not like that. He didn't think that they ought to brought a woman in there with all those men. But I was cashier, and I worked there for quite a while. And so we had that. And then we have a light association, and I've been some involved in that. When they opened the hospital here, I was on the board, really. I was one of the first ones at the hospital. Yeah, when they were building it. Yeah.
How did you get involved?
Not involved, honey. Then we had oh, what would you call it? It was a bunch of ladies, and they invited, and I went, and Mrs. Whatchamacallit, lady in Westminster, she was a big shot, and she was our chairman, our president, and they invited me, and I went, and I was on the board at the hospital.
How did they get to know you?
Well, honey, in those days, you had more way of knowing each other. I knew everybody on the board. Mrs. Weimert was our president, and I knew her. And honey, you could volunteer, and I volunteered. I'd run the gift shop, ordered candies and a lot of different things that we needed. It's not like it is today. We didn't have near as much in there, but it was a lot of fun. And Joe Sham was with me. He worked with me some, and I had other helpers. I had a shift of girls who came. We were opened up maybe at 11 to 4, and then somebody came at 4 and took it till we closed at 7 or 8. Yeah, and I had a lot of good workers. I had a cousin who was going to be president of the mission, and she asked me if I would join with her and help her. And she's not living. She was a precious cousin, and she asked me if I would come in with her, and that's how it all started. And the Westminster Rescue Mission opened a little old store on the Railroad Avenue, and I was one of the first members of that. And I belong to the auxiliary to this day, which that was back, I guess, 30 or 40 years ago. And I went to a meeting last week, and all of those people that I worked with back then are gone, and I was the only one left to be in the Westminster Rescue Mission Auxiliary. And Margie Myers lived across the street, and she was like my own mother, and she had me over there many, many meals, and I have to tell you that they took me to Ireland, Scotland, France, the Pacific Ocean, California, Colorado, Florida, all over without me ever spending a penny. Their son Arthur was so good to me. He's not living, and they took me everywhere they went, and took Aunt Margie and I. Of course, I went with her, and we had such a good time. And we had the best of everything. Never forget, that was a wonderful opportunity. Well, otherwise, I'd have never gotten anywhere out of Frizzleburg.
You kissed the...
I kissed the Blarney Stone, yes, in Ireland, and I have pictures of that. And I just was so thrilled that they would give me an opportunity to do something like that, because otherwise I'd have never had the chance. They were wonderful. Oh, they insisted that I kiss the Blarney Stone, so I did. Arthur Myerson gave me that. And that's a picture of me kissing the Blarney Stone down on my back. And we have a wonderful church. We have Pastor Reisberg, and he's been wonderful to me. And I just have enjoyed that so much. He's been here about 12, 14 years, and he's wonderful. And the Frizzleburg Bible Church, which is just around the corner. And I've been active in the church ever since. And I'm, guess, the oldest member there. And we have a wonderful preacher. And I've taught Sunday school there, and I've been in the Aid Society and all the different organizations of the church. I've tried to help, and I'm still going. And I don't know whether I should say this. I've been to that church since 1948, and I missed one service in 10 years. Yes, sir. And but that's been through the help and the love and how everybody has accepted me, that I continue to go. That's a must. Every weekend, without fail, I go. I've been on the, I'm on the board at the church. I've been on for years and years and years. And just a year or so ago, I said to the preacher, I think I'm old enough to get off. Oh, he said, just hang in there. So I'm still on the board, and we meet about once a month, and I go. Oh.
You also go on Sunday night and Wednesday.
Sunday night, Wednesday night, and Sunday morning, without fail.
What do you
Missed
do?
one service in 10 years. 3 services a week.
What do you do on Wednesdays?
On Wednesday, we have a prayer meeting. We pray for people in Frizzleburg, for the sick, all our missionaries, and we have a prayer meeting, and we have a short Bible study. Honey, I don't know, and I give all my life. I don't know. That's my pleasure, sweetheart. I have never lived different from what I am right now. Always, from a child, from the time I graduated, I wanted to be helping the sick. I wanted to be where I could do something, but be a part of something. All my life. And I know that my dear husband, he thought lots of times that I overdid it and I shouldn't do it. But that was my pleasure. Babysitting, doing anything I could to help somebody else. But I got that from my dear parents. They were always helping, took in all the old folks in the home. You know, we had a nursing home. They had all the poor souls that didn't have a place to go, and they'd take them in. And I guess some of it rubbed off on me. It's been a good life, but at 99, things cannot continue like this. They've got to change one way or another. I don't know how, but they've got to change.
You still live by yourself? You still have a breakfast?
Yeah.
You cook your own breakfast? You cook supper every
Oh,
night?
yeah. I live by myself here, and I fix my own breakfast, and I have my own lunch. And without the Lord and without the help of all my good friends and neighbors, I could never have made it. But the Lord is so good, and I just appreciate everything that He's done for me. He's given me a home and given me a lot of good friends, and I have particular friends right in my own home that help to take care of me, and I just love them all. And my neighbors are all so good to me, and I appreciate it. People call me the mayor, but I'm not the mayor. I don't know, they just want to hook a name onto me, and I'm nothing, but anyway, they call me the mayor.
I've known the mayor of Frizzleburg, as we call her, ever since I got married to John Schaefer and moved to Frizzleburg, which was in '64. And she's such a lovely lady. I couldn't wait to come celebrate her birthday with her.
And I just want to say in closing that I will be, in 2 weeks, I will be a birthday come up 99, and I have one more year to go. And I hope that I stay well, and I appreciate all the kindness and all the love and all the consideration that everybody has had for me, and I love you.
Hi, I'm Susie. I've known Thelma forever and a day. I know the good, bad, and ugly about her, but I know her cup runneth over with kindness. I love you,